Hey everyone, John Michael here at H2OMG headquarters, and by that I mean my kids' room. Today we're talking with Rita Alfaro, a music librarian at the Fort Worth Public Library, all about water music. And if you thought I could go a whole episode without mentioning Creedence Clearwater Revival, boy were you wrong. Rita and I discussed the unique job of a music librarian and all the awesome and virtual events happening all the time at the Fort Worth Public Library. If you don't follow them on Facebook already, you really should. Just search Fort Worth Public Library on Facebook and check out their events section to find out about all the great things going on all the time. We discuss Rita's music and book club Off the Record and Spinster Reads, which takes place every other Monday. The library even has a virtual Dungeons & Dragons game going on, which I just found out about. So if you listen to our water conservation-based D&D adventure with Drippy the Water Wizard and want to participate in an adventure of your own, you can do that with the library. I'll put all these links in the show notes for anyone interested. We also discuss our shared love of professional wrestling. I want to give another shout out to friend of the show and my personal hero, Asuka, the Empress of Tomorrow, who wrestles with WWE. She has an H2OMG shirt, and as I mentioned in the episode, you can see her wearing it in a video on her YouTube channel where she's playing the Zelda theme song on a recorder. Also, shout out to one of Rita's favorite wrestlers, Kenny Omega, who doesn't follow us on Twitter, but maybe he will now? A huge thanks to Rita for taking the time to talk with us. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for listening. What does a music librarian do?
So, interesting question. There's a variety of things that librarians in general do. For music libraries, it really depends on the institution that you work for. The core of librarianship is, of course, like organizing and cataloging, and since I work with the public, of course, it's public service and programming. For, like, let's say I worked for symphony orchestra, I would have to do a lot of work with the sheet music. I know the ones for Fort Worth Symphony Orchestra, they do a lot of like corrections and music theory kind of things. And in academics, it's more on hand with students, helping with curriculum for some of the teachers, like having specialized resources for that sort of thing. My main thing with the public library right now is our kind of curating our online collection for music, our streaming services for Amplify 817. We're kind of launching that right now. And I'm trying to do a lot more with music programming that we have due to COVID-19. We are, of course, still closed. Some of our locations are open, but we're remaining closed and not doing any major in-person programming right now. So our challenges, or my challenge right now, is doing a lot of trying to come up with some virtual programming or interviews or any of that. But I would say right now my biggest thing is Amplify 817 and our launch for that, and looking for artists. And
can you tell us a little bit more about Amplify 817?
Yeah, so Amplify 817 is Fort Worth Library's online music streaming service. It's specifically for local musicians, local artists. And we're specifically, I know a lot of people think local DFW, which I'm all about that. But for our collection, we're specifically looking for Fort Worth musicians.
Cool.
So right now we are in the process. The submissions are about to close. They close on the 30th, but we're looking for local musicians to submit some music, just a couple of tracks to us. So me and a panel of curators can go over them and select what we want for our first submission round. We have about 8 teaser artists right now that you can stream, and streaming is totally free. Before I go on another tangent, but the streaming process of it is totally free to anybody, anywhere, with computer and internet access. For Fort Worth library card holders, you can actually download the music that we have on there. So that's the perk for that side. For the artists, we are paying them. So the biggest thing is we're not taking away any sort of copyright or any of their holding rights on it. Like they still own the music themselves. We're just sort of paying them like a licensing fee so we can have it streaming and downloadable.
Oh, that's cool. Well, so you mentioned curators. What does a curator do exactly?
So the curators are on a panel. It's going to be a panel of 6 curators, which is me and then 5 other people from the community who are going to go through all the music submissions, and we're going to choose the ones that we feel like best fit the collection for the time. We definitely want a variety of people, and our panel is definitely comprising of different music expertise, music backgrounds. So that's a big important part for us, is that we know that we're choosing not just country artists or not just rock bands. We want to have jazz musicians, soul, R&B, Tejano, anything and everything under the sun. That really just shows the diversity of music in Fort Worth.
Cool. So what kind of music do you listen to?
I really love punk music. I love punk. I'm from South Texas, so my love always falls with like Tejano and Conjunto music. That's just kind of like a comfort zone of music for me. When I hear it, like anywhere I go, I'm just like, oh, like Mas or Selena. I'm a big Selena fan. As for punk, I really love some local stuff. I went to school in Denton, and so that's sort of where I kind of fell into more of the rock music scene. So of course, Denton favorites, the Markmen, are one of mine. Fort Worth favorite, Mind Spiders, is also mine, and that guy's from the Markmen. Bad Sports are really great. They're in Austin now. High Tension Wires, which also comprises of members of the Markmen and other Denton bands. So there's
So this is like the furthest from punk that you can possibly go, but isn't the band Midlake from Denton?
Maybe.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with them. I also listen to a lot of Japanese music.
Oh yeah, okay. What kind of
I grew up on that sort of, so
one of my favorite bands, I'd say top 3, is a Japanese punk band called High Standard. So I love them. It's like I mean, it's pretty poppy, you know, but and actually I found out about Midlake and High Standard when I worked at the Humboldt Public Library in Humboldt, Tennessee. Shout out. And we had a closet. And we did like book sales and all that stuff. People would donate, and we would sell it for, you know, like real cheap just to get rid of it. And there was a closet where we kept all the stuff. And my boss told me, go in the closet and just I guess that was stuff that we weren't going to sell or whatever. She was like, just throw it away. So I went in there and I found a Midlake CD and a High Standard CD, and this was like, I don't know, 15 years ago, and I'm still a huge fan of both of those bands. So that was pretty cool.
The organic way of finding music is just through that or digging. That's my favorite thing. I collect records, so it's just going to music stores and being able to dig for gems. I found a couple of bands that I probably wouldn't have discovered without kind of digging, like the dollar bins or the crates or anything. And you need to be careful when you collect records, because I know people with like thousands and thousands, and it's just going to be impossible for them to move. My collection's fairly small. I feel like it's a very curated collection. I only really buy something that I just truly, really want. Like I always use the example, like I really like the Beatles, but I'm not like fall head over heels over them. So I don't own all their albums. That's just a lot of money and something I don't want. And I think I have their stuff on CD. George Harrison, on the other hand, I love him, and he's my favorite Beatle. So
he's the best Beatle. Yeah.
So things like that. And I've imported quite a few Japanese albums. So my record collection will consist of that as well as just some Japanese punk and pop bands. So
cool. So I have a pretty small vinyl collection. And I basically got it in one night. Me and my friend Nick went to the Goodwill in Humboldt, Tennessee. A lot of this revolves around Humboldt. And we were in the Goodwill, and I looked through their record collection, and I found a bunch of Creedence Clearwater Revival and Simon and Garfunkel, and I found a Beatles album in there and like a bunch of really great stuff, and that he had already looked through and just decided to skip, I guess. I don't know. But I bought all that, and that pretty much completed my collection. But you know, speaking of Creedence Clearwater Revival, well, they have water in the name of their band, and they also have 4 songs about water that I can think of off the top of my head, and there are probably more.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So with that, what's your favorite song about water?
Waterfalls by TLC.
Oh, nice. Okay. I think
Or It's Raining Men by the Weather
Oh,
Girls.
yeah.
Either one.
Both excellent choices. I don't think anyone's ever said It's Raining Men. I think
because is water really involved in that one?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Let's see. So, we when we go to career days at schools, we always try to encourage kids to, seek a higher education. And so if any of the kids are listening right now, what did you study in school to get the job that you have now?
So my undergraduate from UNT, go Eagles, is in music education. I was a big band nerd growing up. That's kind of where I found my niche. So I pursued music education. Did that for 4 years, student taught, was teaching for a little bit, wanted to learn more about the other side of music. I discovered a lot of really cool stuff. Like I said, high school, I got really into Japanese rock and I got into British rock and all that kind of stuff. So I started exploring ethnomusicology and musicology. I did some graduate work in that at University of Texas Pan American, or I think they're UTRGV now, Rio Grande Valley. Didn't finish that program, moved back up here, and I started doing my MLS a couple of years ago, which my master's in library science. Which was really perfect. I love libraries. I think a lot of people have that, and you worked in libraries too. So, people are just like, oh, like libraries, you just have books, like old stuffy books, like, and you answer questions. I can just Google that and we're a little bit more than that. We're a lot more than that, actually. So like I said, like I'm a music librarian right now for our system. There's not a lot of public music librarians out there. Or they just don't have the title. But we're doing things like that where we're working with the community a lot and other organizations to bring music stuff. We're doing a lot of educational teaching stuff as well. Like we have GED classes in English, Spanish. As well as services for children. We were doing like lunch things as well. So the biggest thing with library science, I think, is people will go in thinking, oh, I get to just like read all day. What a dream job. And it's definitely not that. It's definitely about helping people in public service. And there's some reading involved. But for anybody and the great thing is you can have really any background and then come into librarianship. As long as you've got that passion to help people, you can, there's people who I know who have backgrounds in psychology or philosophy, people who are history majors, English majors, people who did criminal justice, like everybody on art people, especially music. You can take any background and work it into libraries. So I always recommend that for people who definitely want to work with the public and help people. And even then, like you get your library degree and you don't necessarily have to work in the public. You can work in academics. That was initially my goal, was to kind of work in academics. I really like the research aspect of music and helping students kind of find resources in the best way. And when I started working for Fort Worth Public, I fell in love with working with the public and getting to be in my community again. And I just was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to stick with. Even if I wasn't the music librarian, I would still be a public librarian.
Yeah. So you guys have a music book club, right?
Yeah. It's sort of it's a blend between a music chat and a music book club. We went over books last week. I kind of left it open if anybody had amplified questions, because that's when we started launching a lot of things. And I know a lot of people had, like, my inbox was just full of people with random questions. So pretty much what we're doing is just kind of having this, it's an open-ended music chat. So I like to think of it as when you go to like a music store or record store and the guy at the counter just kind of like, oh yeah, this is a really great band. Have you heard of this band? Like, have you gone, 1970s, whatever, like just kind of offshoot about music. And that's what I kind of want this to be, is a safe space for people to come in and talk about, their recent music finds, a new playlist they made. Did you learn a new instrument? You can come by and maybe play a little bit for us. Do you have any random music questions? Like maybe I can try to answer that for you. Or, or even I'll post like some articles, and I'll post like some things from my vinyl collection on our Amplify 817 group. So I kind of let it segue into if you want to talk more about that or that genre of music or whatever. And then, so that's usually the first meeting, and then the last meeting of the month, because it is bi-weekly. So every other Monday, or bi-monthly, every other Monday.
Yeah.
And then the last one is sort of focused book club, music book club. So for this month, we have a meeting this Monday. It'll be on music biographies, depending on how many people come. We've only had like maybe 1 or 2 people for the last couple. Next month, I was thinking of doing Texas musicians. We do have several books available as ebooks in our collection. And now that we have some locations open and they are doing curbside for those who are still kind of nervous to go into any places, which I totally understand. You can request any of the physical books and they'll bring them out to you. And we are sanitizing and cleaning everything. So do not fear.
Yeah.
And there was an article recently that said that things don't live on library materials. So, or the virus doesn't live on it. So I'm just like, yay for us. Yeah. We're still clean a lot. Yeah. We clean a lot anyway, because it's public things. Yeah. But yeah, we're being extra cautious this time around as well.
Yeah.
So there's that. And you can also go into some of the locations if you miss browsing. We're limiting time on that. I think the max is an hour, but I mean, you can go in and see what you want, check it out. We have self-checkout machines, and then be on your way. So
yeah, you don't even have to talk to anybody if you don't want to, right?
Yeah, you really don't. And that's funny. It's that goes into a lot of with people. I'll get phone calls when I was working in a branch, and they're just like, I need to renew my card. Do I have to go in? And I'm like, yeah, unfortunately you do. There are people who are just like, but I only use your e-resources. And I'm like, I'm sorry, like you do have to come in, like just to show ID really quick. So there's patrons I would have that would just come in like once every year. Now it's 3 years to renew, but and I would just be like, oh yeah, I remember you. And they're just like, you're still here. I was at my location for a very long time. So I was like, yep, I'm still here. But now if you do the e-cards, if you don't want to go into the branch, there's you can go online and pretty much just prove your residency. If you don't already have a card, just kind of scan or take a picture of that and they'll update that for you.
Oh, okay. I can't.
Off the record was what I was saying, the music chat and music book club every other Monday.
Oh, that's what it's called? Off the record?
Yeah, it's called Off the Record, and then Off the Record Spinster Reads is going to be the music, the book portion of it. Yeah.
So where can people go to join this virtual club?
That's everything we have is online, so it's a Zoom link. You'll just have to register for it. We have the event on our Facebook page. So if you go to the Fort Worth Library's Facebook page, there'll be a link that says events, and it'll have everything we have coming. So that'll be on there. I also post about it in our Amplify 817 fans Facebook group. So if you just type in Amplify 817, it'll pop up. You can join the group. It's open to the public, and it'll be saved on there as well.
I do have a biography of Johnny Cash that's been sitting on my Kindle for a while.
I have a lot of books. I was talking to somebody at the club last week about it. I have a couple of music biographies, some on producers, some on like conjunto artists, Selena, George Harrison, David Bowie, of course, as well. But I mostly just have genre-specific kind of biographies or academic music kind of stuff. But that's always where my interest has gone. So I always enjoy that. So this has been nice because I've always had a long list of like, oh, I want to read about this musician or this musician. And I just never got around to it. And now that I'm done with school as well, because I just graduated in May.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It feels weird because it didn't happen. I mean,
I bet.
Physically, I did not walk. I just got my diploma this week and I was like, oh yeah. But yeah, it's... now I've got a little bit more time. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to read all these biographies now. So I'm being a library nerd about that. And I'm like, yeah, I get to read for fun now.
Yeah. Well, what other kind of books do you like to read just personally?
I love true crime. And that's probably that. And then pretty much anything that's sort of genre specific. Aside from that, like I really love. I've been trying to read more wrestling books since that's also one of my likes and hobbies is wrestling. So I enjoy reading and not necessarily biographies. I think those are great. Like I really liked Eddie Guerrero's biography, but I enjoy kind of the behind the scenes or the history of wrestling because I think the ingrained wrestling thing in people's mind is like 1980s like rock and wrestling sort of Hulk Hogan tearing off his shirt, which is great. I mean that is a big part of wrestling, but I think there's a lot more that goes on behind it, and there was stuff way before that, and there's stuff all over the world about it. So I really like that as well. I read some fiction. As for fiction, my favorite author is Anthony Burgess. I read most of his books. Okay.
Clockwork Orange guy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I always say that's my favorite book. And I don't know if I need to update that because I'm like, it's been a while since I read that. But I've read it a couple of times. And I think I mostly just love that Anthony Burgess was like a language anthropologist. Mm-hmm. So he wrote that language and he's done that a couple of times. There's a movie he did. I forgot what the movie was. Ray Don Chung is in it. But it's I think about like prehistoric kind of caveman or something like that, but he did language. He wrote it for them, and I was like, "That's."
Is Ron Perlman also in it?
Yes,
I know exactly what you're talking about, and maybe somebody listening is going to be screaming at their podcast.
I know it was late '80s, early '90s. I can't remember the name of it.
Like the Quest for Fire, is that it?
Yes, yeah.
Is that what it is? Okay. Oh, nice.
But he was
I like that
the
movie.
Linguistics person on that, and I was like. That's just really cool. I don't think any of his other books kind of explore that, but I just love his writing in general.
Very cool. So you mentioned wrestling, and I think listeners of the podcast and followers of our social media will see all the little wrestling stuff that I slip in under the radar. And so I want to give a shout out to a friend of the podcast, Oscar. Yeah, she's a huge fan, I think. She has our shirt anyway, and you can see it. You can see the podcast shirt in one of her videos on her YouTube channel. But yeah, I like to name drop anytime I can. And John Cena also follows our social media. Just want to drop that in, so no big deal. But yeah, I'm a big wrestling fan too. I just read the autobiography of Hornswoggle, Life is Short and So Am I, a couple months ago. So that was a lot of fun. And I was in a Half Price Books yesterday. Actually, every time me and you talk, I'm about 10 minutes away from going to a Half Price Books because there's one right down the street, like 100 yards from me. So I go there quite a bit. But there's a really good like biography or autobiography, I don't know, of Ric Flair.
That should be interesting.
Yeah, so I should just get it. It's only $10. And it's got like color photographs and everything. So I don't know. Maybe.
That's actually pretty. That's not a terrible price. Texas is interesting. Another like little interesting Texas thing is mums. I don't know how long for like prom or homecoming. Like the mom culture has gotten ridiculous. Can
you tell? We have a lot of listeners overseas too who might not know about what these mums are, and I had never heard of it until I moved here.
Yeah,
can you explain this very bizarre thing? I didn't know it was
a Texas thing. I thought everybody all over the United States did this, but apparently it's just a Texas thing. It's just a giant, I guess, pin that you'll wear, and it looks like a flower or just covered in ribbons. Some of them will have bells and little whistles and like little figurines, and it might have your name and the year. And it's just this huge thing. It doesn't have to be a huge thing, but over the years, if you just Google mums, M-U-M, and Texas mums, massive. They've just become outfits. Mm-hmm. Like I've seen girls wear them as like dresses.
Yeah.
When I had mine, it was pretty big. It covered probably like my right side for homecoming. Guys get to wear the cute little one. It's just like a band over their arm. Oh. Girls go all out. People spend tons of money. There's stores in Texas dedicated to selling the materials to make them. It is a lucrative business. It is a lucrative side hustle. But I had no idea for years. Like I've always lived in Texas, and I was like, I did not know that mums were not Like everybody just didn't do them for homecoming.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just wherever you live, you think, oh, this is normal. This is what everybody does, because growing up in Tennessee, I was sure that everybody would catch possums in these like catch and release traps at their homes and then go release them in the woods. But turns out not a lot of people do that. So that's Tennessee for you.
I'm terrified of possums.
They're scary. They're really scary.
Yeah, they used to. My parents used to scare me by telling me that they would, like when I was a kid, like if you were bad, they were going to come get you, and they scratch on the walls. And so, like, to play jokes on me, like my family would just scratch on the walls when I was a kid. I'd just be like, "Oh my God, possums!"
I gotta remember that.
Now I'm not. So I still don't like them. I appreciate them, I guess, for what they are. But
well, one time,
creature. But
I don't know if I'm gonna leave this in because I don't know if I want everybody. No, I mean what I'm about to say. I don't know if I'm gonna leave it in because I don't know if I want everybody to know how much of a redneck I was growing up. But we would catch these possums in these, in traps, but it was very humane. I mean, like they wouldn't get hurt. They would just be caught in the cage, and then we'd release them into the woods away from our house. But we would drive out there in our car, and I don't remember how old I was, maybe like, I don't know, 9 or 10. And my dad released the possum from the thing, and then we were all on top of our car. Actually, we'd get on top of the car and then wait for the possum to go about its merry way. And I remember it being a particularly big possum, and he released it, and it walked out, and it was hissing at us and baring its teeth, and we were kind of just stuck on the car until it decided to go on. So yeah, they are pretty. I don't know how mean they actually are, but they sure do present as being vicious to, I guess, intimidate. This one seemed mean.
Yeah, they're just, when they hiss, and I get it, they're scared, they're doing that, and I'm also like, but I just don't want to mess with that.
I don't anymore either. Let me see. So we talked about wrestling already, but I was going to ask who your favorite wrestler is.
Sting. I'm a big Sting fan. I really started getting into wrestling around Attitude Era. So I was watching Surfer Sting, but then I saw the transformation of Surfer Sting into Crow Sting, and that just blew my mind. I was obsessed after that. But I still love him to this day. And Japanese wrestler is Kota Ibushi. I love him. I got to meet him a couple years ago, and that was very exciting.
That's awesome. I was trying to connect it to music, and I was trying to think of a Sting and the Police joke to make, but I'll just leave it there. Listen to that and make your own joke out of it. And
I do have a couple of wrestling albums. If anybody's interested in wrestling music. So for one of the record store days, if you guys didn't know, record store day, I think it's twice a year now. They do it on Black Friday as well, but I think it usually falls in spring. They canceled it this year, unfortunately, but there'll be special releases. And so one of them was like the WWE like rock and wrestling thing. I always work on Saturdays, typically public service. So I never get to go to record store day, but my best friend had gotten it for me. He's like, I figured you'd want this, and they have tons of copies. So, and I think it just has like some theme songs. I think Cyndi Lauper's on it. Another one is by the Mountain Goats. They're very folksy, kind of sad songs. I feel like their songs are always kind of depressing, but they're lovely. I think he's one guy really in the Mountain Goats, but he did a whole album dedicated to like wrestling stories, specifically like I think some Puerto Rican like territory stuff. And
I have got to check them out because I know that they also did an album or some songs about Dungeons and Dragons, which is another thing that I love. So that guy, I think me and him have a lot in common. So I should check that out. That's really cool. I had no idea.
But yeah, it's a really good album. That was a good purchase, and I enjoyed it. It's a chill album, and it's folk, so it tells a story, and I really enjoy that about music. Again, with conjunto music as well, would kind of tell a story. So, recommend those.
Very cool.
And I'm a big Kenny Omega fan as well, who was a tag team partner with my favorite wrestler from Japan, Kota Ibushi, Golden Lovers. So yeah, I love Kenny Omega.
That's awesome.
Great too.
Yeah.
And he's a gamer as well, so I think that's cool. He connects into that.
I also listen to the New Days podcast, and one of them, Xavier Woods, is also a big gamer too. So
they've done like things, I think, like Street Fighter tournaments against each other.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if the tournament, it was just 1-1, but they're fun. I love that.
So I know that events are kind of hazy right now. Nobody's planning anything. But do you guys have any virtual events coming up or any music programs coming up that you wanna let people know about?
We do. We have a lot coming up. I'm just gonna tell people to go to our Facebook, the Fort Worth Library Facebook page, and go under events, because we just have so much going on. Cool. And we're really pushing the virtual stuff because we still want to provide information and resources to people. Some of the stuff we have, some of our big stuff, we have online Spanish fundamentals and a Spanish conversation class. That gets very specific on levels and things, but you can talk to our person in charge of that. She actually told me to share her email. Yeah, so it's luzearly@fortworthtexas.gov. It's spelled luz.earley@fortworthtexas.gov. She's fantastic at her class. Her classes are extremely popular. So if you're wanting to get in that practice and get into those classes, they're also very large classes. Email her. She'll give you more information. We just were awarded a grant through Google. So we have some Google classes coming up, Grow with Google, which will do like resumes and job research and that kind of thing. That's in July. Law at the Library seminars we're also doing with Texas A&M Law. A lot of things pertaining to what's going on now. We had like a will sort of thing, a renter's rights thing, which was a really big thing during this time. Yeah. I've got a music therapy thing that's going to happen in July, I believe July 30th. We're still working on the details with that, as well as, of course, my book club that happens every other Monday, or music club in general. It doesn't have to be books, anything music, or wrestling. If you guys want to come out wrestling, we can do that too.
I think you need a wrestling book club.
We could probably do that. And there's a few of us in the system who are just like, oh, you like wrestling? Like, it always just kind of peeks out like, you like wrestling? So do I. Let's talk.
Yeah, it's not something that you usually advertise, but
I do.
I don't care. I wear my shirts around. So
yeah, I'm like, what? I think my shirts are great. There's so many really great wrestling shirts. But aside from that, we have like a piñata making class coming up as well. We have our trivia every Tuesday. We do trivia nights online at 7:00. I will be hosting one next week, which is a music one, in partnership with Here Fort Worth, and one of our Amplify 817 artists, Lou Charles, will be hosting with me. Cool. Yeah, we've got a lot. We have a craft at home thing we do every Thursday, one of which I will be hosting as well. So another thing that we have going on is for the summer, our Mayor Summer Reading program that we have is all virtual this year since we can't do anything online. Yeah, you can register through our Facebook or through our website. It'll have the link on there, and you can register your whole family. You can register just yourself, but it has a lot of, aside from keeping a reading log, it'll have challenges that you can do that kind of embrace what's going on, whether like for this month, there's some like LGBT things, there's some Panther City things, there's some cultural things. I have my own badge on the adult one, which will have some of the things we've talked about today, whether it's like Amplify, or wrestling. Yeah. I also like gardening. There's the thing on there. Cool. But yeah, I recommend doing that, especially if you're still kind of bored at home or you're still kind of exploring the parts of the city that aren't so packed and scary. Yeah. That's a good one to do. Is there a wrestler on the badge? No, it is me. It is it's you. Some of the staff, we've had our own badges just because of our interests and things that didn't fit in other categories. Yeah. And so everybody's badge is just a little picture of themselves. So it's a virtual badge. You don't get an actual prize, unfortunately. We usually do big prizes when we do it in-house, but this year, since it's all virtual and we are not open for programming in the summer, it's all online. So it's like an honor system badge, an honor badge. But you can you see like how many people have earned your badge and everything? You can't. So it's individual based. I think we get the numbers at the end of the month,
Oh, cool.
but it's not, unfortunately, it's not like a competition against other people. It's like a very much an individual thing. But
there probably is a competition where you're saying more people earned my badge than your badge, fellow definitely. Employee, right?
Oh yeah, it'd be like more people like my badge than your badge, but it also just depends too, because other people are like having like their badges are in like the youth one or the toddler one or the teen one, and mine's just adult. So
yeah, cool.
So yeah, definitely check out our Facebook events for that. Or you can always contact the library and ask, and they can kind of give you a rundown. We have an online calendar too. It's all through either the website or the Facebook.
Okay.
I recommend the Facebook, but if you don't have Facebook, then you will have to go through the calendar on the website.
Yeah. So I'll put links to both of those in the show notes. So anybody listening, that's where you can find out all about all this cool stuff that's happening at the library.
Yeah, and hopefully we get some great people for Amplify. Like I was saying, I guess the last message, this is our first submission round for Amplify. We're finally getting it off the ground from February. We're really excited about it. So just spread the word. And if you just want to be a supporter, you can email us at amplify817@fortworthtexas.gov. If you have any questions or comments, or you have it in with any of the local venues, or you have your own store, or whatever it is, just please come by. Or you can come by to the Off the Record chat. I'm always happy to talk about Amplify 24/7.
Cool. Yeah, thanks again for doing this.
Yeah.
All right. So it's been a while since I've read reviews on here. Maybe that's because we haven't gotten too many lately, but I'm hoping to change that with your help. Anyway, here's a review we got way back in February from someone whose username is just a bunch of numbers, but I'm convinced it's a real person and not just a bot that goes around leaving nice 5-star reviews on water podcasts. The title of the review is Best Podcast About Water. And then the review is, "This is the best," in all caps. "Of all the podcasts about water, this is the best," like I said. And that's the end of the review, but that's a pretty good one, I think. So that's it. If you have 1 minute to spare and can remember your iTunes password, please leave us a rating and a review. Even if you don't write a review, at least hit that 5-star rating. It'll help us spread the word about our little podcast tremendously. Thanks again to Rita for taking the time to talk with us. Remember to check out Fort Worth Library's events page on Facebook. See you next time.